Hello and thanks for joining us on your channel of choice, Africa Independent Television AIT. This is the signature show and I am Marvelous Obomano. Well, the Igbo have a saying that no matter how young you may be, if your father dies, you must grow up and take charge of the Obi. My senior colleague, Chief Nwabweze Njoko, is under the weather after a hectic week as we prepared for the launch of Season 3 of our anti-corruption program, Corruption Tori. So I am stepping in this Sunday and I hope we have a good Sunday afternoon. And in the program today, attack on Kuje prison. Is this a sign of the dangers before the 2023 elections? Shehu Sani predicts a coup of the type Nigerians do not know. The emergence of a third force as Peter Obi picks his running mate. Corruption Tori Season 3. Former Imo State House of Assembly Speaker says there are practical solutions to Nigeria's corruption problems. Plus, our thank you segment. Please stay with us. Let me tell you for free. On Thursday morning, Chief Nwabweze Njoko called the office. He said that he woke up to see a young man who seemed lost and sat opposite his house, seeming not to know where he was or where he was going to. He accosted the man who pointed to nowhere as his destination. It then occurred to him that the young man could be one of the Kuje prison escapees. Then, on Friday morning, a colleague of his forwarded to him a text by distinguished Senator Shehu Sani. According to Sani, and I quote, "The game going on at Abuja right now has already been known and revealed." End of quote. Before then, the advance convoy of President Muhammadu Buhari, who was on a visit to his home state, Katsina, was attacked by terrorists. The presidency made light of the incident, which was definitely a national embarrassment. Something is not just right, and the whole matter tastes foul, very foul in the mouth. Dear Mr. President, among those not accounted for in the Kuje prison attack last week are a number of commanders of terrorist groups whom the bandits have demanded their release in exchange for adopted passengers of the Kaduna-Abuja train. Also, not accounted for is Wadume, the kidnapped kingpin who some military operatives set free after killing police operatives. So, a gun runner and a kidnapper and his terrorist colleagues have been let loose on all of us, even when our government knew that those individuals called for extra security.
3 attacks in 2 weeks have raised the question if the government of President Muhammadu Buhari realizes that Nigeria's security challenge needs more than boots on the ground. In addition to modern technology, it has become obvious that the president, without waiting to leave office in 2023, must now examine the content of our security institutions. Who are their personnel? To whom are they loyal? What manner of training and indoctrination are they getting? The first attack was in Shiroro, Niger State. Bandits successfully lured our troops into an ambush and eliminated almost a battalion of our finest soldiers. The presidency regretted the losses and pledged that their deaths will not be in vain. Now, as if that attack was not audacious and brazen enough, the advance convoy of the commander-in-chief himself was successfully breached as the president prepared to visit his home state, Katsina, for the Salah festival.
Drone is very easily accessible. Why didn't they use that? Why are they still continue with the archaic method of movement of presidential fleet? This will teach many of them a lesson to upgrade in that type of operational movement.
As Nigerians raised question on what the president's security sweepers do and where they were for the nation's #1 citizen to suffer such humiliation on his convoy, Boko Haram and their collaborators invaded Kuje Middle Security Prison, took away all their 64 colleagues, and freed as many willing criminals in the correctional facility.
They had intelligence from the international body. They had intelligence from the some other bodies that provided intelligence for them. They did not act on it. And the unfortunate aspect of the whole thing, if you have gone to that Kuje prison, you will notice that that long stretch road, there's always security at every stop before you even get to the correctional building. So what happened to all those security that were put there? It's not only police, you have DSS, you have military there. So what happened to them?
According to the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, Kuje Prison is Nigeria's best protected facility, and there were enough security personnel to ward off any attack. So, what happened?
If those who are saddled with the responsibility of tackling this problem are also behaving hopeless and helpless, then we will not have a country in the next few years.
Some analysts are of the opinion that there was intelligence before the attack, but the security agencies failed to work together to stop the attack even when there was a request for reinforcement to foil the attack that lasted for 3 hours. Again, what happened? Are there moles in command positions in our security institutions? Or are the agencies working against one another?
There should be a complete cleansing in the security circle. There are some moles that have found themselves in the security agencies that need to be flushed out so that we can have a correct and well-organized security institution that will continue to do our jobs for us.
The Kuje prison attack, Shiroro attack, and the attack on the president's convoy are not alone in their import. There have been attacks on government infrastructure like the Abuja-Kaduna train, the attack on the Nigeria Defense Academy, attack on Imo State Correctional Facility, and the Nigeria Custodial Center in Agbolongo, Oyo State. In all these, none of the perpetrators have been arrested, successfully tried, and punished. So for these attackers, their actions bear no consequences.
Huge parts of Nigeria are being taken over by armed criminals. Where is our military? And we have to keep asking this question. We used to have one of the most formidable militaries in the world. Something is wrong.
The Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, had made a promise after the attack in Oyo State that it would be the end of security breaches in our prisons. The attack on Kuje prison proved the minister wrong. In other words, there will be more attacks.
Defense and security budgets have been the highest, gets the highest allocation in our national annual budgets. So you are pumping in money without commensurate result. How can we be pumping in hundreds of millions of dollars to confront bandits who are only using AK-47 and motorcycle and their phone?
The implication of these expanding, daring, and successful attacks is that a number of Nigerians will begin to consider the Governor Bello Matawalle option of everyone to himself. Because if the state fails to protect its own infrastructure and the citizen can also not fail himself. The second implication is that unless the present government shows deeper, more scientific, and demonstrable commitment to defending the nation, it is likely to hand over an unraveling nation to its successor. And that would be very unkind.
There is something happening to Nigerian politics. I have not been around for a long time, but I can smell the aroma of a new political dawn, the Peter Obi phenomenon and his running mate, Dr. Yusuf Baba Ahmed. Something will surely happen in 2023 if an election will take place in Nigeria. Mark my word. If you like, call it a third or a fourth force, but this force may change Nigerian politics.
I have very distinctive honor to present to you somebody I can call a friend, a younger brother, because I'm senior. This is what I'm saying. A younger brother, and God willing, the next Vice President of Nigeria. Senator Yusuf Dati Baba Ahmed. Who has been described as one of the brightest, youngest personalities in Nigeria that has distinguished himself in all areas.
Well, last week, our sister program unveiled its season 3 of Corruption Story. The event was all color and expression of appreciation for the content and valued landmarks which the program has achieved in the last 2 seasons.
Apart from attracting high-profile personalities and organizations, including the police, EFCC, ICPC, MacArthur Foundation, ActionAid, and Yaradua Foundation, the unveiling of Season 3 of anti-corruption program, Corruption Story, turned to be a harvest of hope that Nigeria will win the war against corruption.
I have decided to shun corruption. I have decided to shun corruption. No turning back, no turning back. I a student, avoid corruption. A politician, avoid corruption. A civil servant, avoid corruption. ICPC is watching you.
This program has really helped a lot, and also it will still help more people because one, it will help to stop against the corruption in Nigeria, to also make people to know that yes, corruption is evil, and if they continue like that, instead of Nigeria to reproduce greatly, rather to decrease in number. So please, I would like to once again thank the Signature TV and MacArthur Foundation for putting up this show.
We can end corruption through, like, when we learn how to behave ourselves instead of favoring others and then engaging in examination malpractices. We can end corruption through those ways, avoiding listening to our parents and listening to their advices.
Children are the leaders of tomorrow, and that is why I saw it as very smart for them to start with children, so that we can help other people to understand what corruption is and how to stop it.
And the thing about corruption is that it's like the wind. It doesn't choose who it affects. You might have all the money you want in Nigeria. If you have a medical emergency, Nigeria will happen to you. You might live in the biggest house in Nigeria. The day armed robbers come, Nigeria will happen to you. So corruption is actually Nigeria happening to us. And I'm hoping that with the help of this program, that when we say in the next 10 years that Nigeria is happening to us, it will be that something good is happening in our life. I don't want you to live in a country and grow up in a country where your country is synonymous with evil. Because if they say that America happened to you, it's good news. England happened to you, it's good news. Nigeria happened to you. May it change in your lifetime.
We just wish to, send our warm greetings to Signature TV as a partner in the fight against corruption. ActionAid Nigeria is dedicated and committed to fighting corruption by encouraging citizens' demand for accountability and transparency from their leaders, and we remain committed to supporting Signature TV in whatever capacity that we can, as partners in development, as partners in ensuring that we achieve the Nigerian dream.
The event was an opportunity for Signature Communications Limited, producers of Corruption Tori, to look at the journey so far and announce the focus of the program in the next season.
It was an intentional thing to involve the children in this project. And we're not disappointed at all. Because when we had the essay last year, when we looked at what these kids were saying, the way they express themselves, we are hoping that sometime this year we are going to publish a small pamphlet when we do the essay competition this year, where we would, publish without unedited the thoughts of the children. You will be disappointed as adults, or that I will be shocked that we have disappointed these children all these years.
MacArthur Foundation, funders of the Corruption Tori, expressed their appreciation that the program was focusing on the next generation of Nigerians to whom the nation belongs.
Our generation, the generation before me, failed me because this was not the Nigeria that I inherited. But my generation has also failed you. And so the opportunity that Signature TV is providing for you to be a part of this fight against corruption, all of you should seize it. Use that club to start fighting corruption in the small spaces where you guys find yourself.
For the anti-graft agencies, EFCC, ICPC, and the police, the unveiling of Season 3 of Corruption Tori was an opportunity to seek collaboration with the program and enumerate some of the steps they are taking to rein in corruption in Nigeria.
We need to find the solution within us. There is nobody can do that. Even MacArthur will do all that they want to do. But the real thing is that we need to take a decision. And may God help us to do so.
The door of the Commission are always open for collaboration and partnership with the stakeholders in the fight against corruption. At this juncture also, I urge key stakeholders in the fight against corruption to team up with ICPC, as no one openly can win the fight against corruption without the support and cooperation of the members of the public.
We have a great work to do. Corruption is eating us deeply. And thank you very much, sir. You've raised a lot of points about welfare of civil servants. Let me tell you that a police officer in Nigeria in 2022, a police officer's salary, the first set of police officers, that's what you call the constable, his salary is just 40,000 naira. He has a wife, he has a child, he has to transport himself from Nasarawa State Cairo to come to office. He has to buy food for his family, he has to pay school fees, medical bill with just 40,000 naira. I think I should raise my scale.
It was, however, the former Speaker of Imo State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Godfrey Dikocha, who stirred the audience with his observations and suggestions. Dikocha said that the ruling by the Supreme Court that EFCC should not investigate finances of states was an open invitation to corruption. He then suggested that the National Assembly should enact a law making compulsory for details of all major contracts awarded by all tiers of government to be deposited with the anti-graft agencies.
If we want to start solving corruption in Nigeria, let us start giving our civil servants living wage. You know what's called living wage? Living wage is not the same thing as a salary. A living wage is a wage that will take care of the inflationary trend in the country, and take that salary the person has, be able to train the children in school. Because when someone has the children, the salary you are giving to her cannot even take her transport-wise to go to where she's going to. You know, necessity is the mother of invention. And when a child is hungry, the child steals.
The unveiling of Season 3 in Abuja last week marks the beginning of a new focus of the program on community and young people's mobilization in the war on corruption in Nigeria. In Abuja, Nasiru Usman for Signature Show.
Former Speaker of Imo State House of Assembly, the Right Honorable Godfrey Dikocha, who unveiled Season 3 of the program, made two fundamental remarks. He, a lawyer, disagreed with Supreme Court ruling that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, does not have the legal responsibility to probe the finances of states and local government. Dikocha says the Supreme Court, by that ruling, has opened the gates of uncontrollable theft in the states. He then called on the National Assembly to enact a law that makes it mandatory for documents on major contracts awarded by all tiers of government to be deposited with the EFCC and ICPC as a means of preventing corruption. These issues are the subject of our special interview for this Sunday. Please stay with us. Let me welcome you to the conversation segment on the Signature Show on Africa Independent Television, AIT. My guest for today is no other person than Jess Okuteba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. You're welcome, Okuteba.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Very quickly, the former Speaker of Imo State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Dikocha, has faulted the Supreme Court for saying that anti-graft agencies should not look into the finances of the state. He says that the Supreme Court position is a recipient for corruption. What is your take on that?
First, let me correct these very erroneous impressions being circulated on social media. There is no judgment of Supreme Court, except that which is yet to be delivered, that had ever said that the anti-corruption agencies, particularly EFCC, ICPC, should not look into the activities or corruption or corrupt activities of either local government, state governments, or even private individuals. No such judgment exists. And the judgment that is being branded and quoted out of context on social media was delivered in the case of Mobike SAN versus Federal Republic of Nigeria. No such issues was discussed. What the Supreme Court said in that case was that the anti-graft agency did not have the power to investigate the allegation of perversion of justice leveled against the Learned Senior Advocate of Nigeria. So soon thereafter, and these are part of the corruption in this country, the social media was awash with snapshots and excerpts said to have come from the Supreme Court, that the Supreme Court bar the EFCC or anti-graft agencies from investigating the accounts of state governments. There is no such things. Rather, on the contrary, very many judgments of the Supreme Court exist to the effect that the anti-corruption agencies have the statutory and constitutional duty to investigate and eradicate corruption, beginning from the case of Attorney General of Ondo State versus Attorney General of the Federation, where the legality of ICPC was brought before the Supreme Court for determination. And the Supreme Court, quoting the provisions of our Constitution, particularly Section 15, that put a burden on the federal government, on the state to eradicate corruption, that the Anti-Corruption ICPC Act was constitutional. The same thing, EFCC had its power and authority challenged a number of cases, including Ibrahim Shehu Shema and the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Jolin Yame and Federal Republic of Nigeria, Joshua Darie and Federal Republic of Nigeria. And in all of these things, the Supreme Court is unanimous that EFCC can open the book of any government functionaries, and not only that, not only limiting itself to federally created offenses. If you look at the EFCC Act, it makes EFCC a coordinating agency for corruption cases, and they have the power to prosecute people that are found to be corrupt under either penal code, other criminal code, or other such laws of the states. You may recall that the Lagos state government attempted at a point in time to promulgate what they call their own anti-corruption law. But when you look at the provisions of our constitution, question may be asked whether indeed the law pertaining to corruption in Nigeria, which organ of government, is it the National Assembly or the State Houses of Assembly that have power to make law? That's out of the purview of this question. But let me correct this impression that the EFCC had been stripped of their power to prosecute. It's not only a political fallacy, it indeed is hallucination by those political office holders and those their sponsors who think that that is the position of law. I'm not bothered about the existence of law. I'm only bothered about the willing power of the power that be to fight and eradicate corruption, which is a constitutional duty. But are we doing so? My answer is yes, because the anti-corruption agencies appears to be hamstrung by so many factors, including political factors, interference from those who ought not to interfere with the job of the anti-corruption agencies. And I think that nobody should mislead Nigerians and quoting Supreme Court out of context. And mark you, the Supreme Court is the symbol of justice in Nigeria. You may not like whoever may be the leaders of this, or Chief Justice of Nigeria, but that does not mean that you must rubbish the institution of the judiciary or the institution of the Supreme Court, which is like the Ashurok you have. And it is only in Nigeria that we rubbish our institutions in the name of exercise of fundamental rights. These are institutions put in place by government. Yes, there are some elements, human beings, that may not meet up to the expectations of Nigerians, but it will be a tragedy of great proportion for us to mess up the institution of judiciary.
Thank you. Now, the former speaker said at the launch of season 3 of our anti-corruption program, Corruption Tory, that documents on major contracts awarded by government at all tiers and all levels should be deposited with anti-graft agencies to allow those agencies keep track of any financial record. Would this be compromising the privacy of these companies?
Well, the suggestion appears attractive and good, but as to whether or not it is within the jurisdiction and competence of the anti-corruption agencies to monitor the enforcement and execution of contract is an issue that is very difficult for me to answer in the affirmative, because it is good, it's ideal, it's fine. It does not, anti-corruption agencies have the power to call for any documents, And I think that they are doing that job and doing it well, but the end product of the efforts they put and the way some power that be interfere with the system and make the independent institution not independent, I think is the bane of the fight against corruption. And so whether you deposit it or not, those contract documents are public documents. Whether you deposit it or not, the execution of those contracts are things that ought to be seen by Nigerians. And I have always said, Nigeria is only a funny country where government advertises its achievements on the pages of newspaper and by the medium of television. But when you go to the site, you will not see it. It will surprise you to know that this level of sophisticated corruption is being elevated so much so now that you can see corrupt judgments being delivered in favor of corrupt public and private officials. How do they do it? With the connivance of people in power, some people in power, who have vested interest in taking away money from the treasuries of this country. They organize litigation, don't defend that litigation, court that is presiding may not know, and judgment is delivered against the institutions, and in the twinkle of an eye, money is being taken out of the treasury of out of Nigerian treasuries for purposes of being sharing because there is a vested interest. That is why in most cases now, or in some cases, not in most cases, you see that some judgments are purely RNG judgments that enabled the power, some power that be, to take money out of our treasuries for purposes of sharing it. And so that's another species of corruption under the anti-corruption government that is not being noticed and fought by the government that came to power by anti-corruption on the mattress of fighting corruption. And there are many of these. When you read some judgments, you also weep for Nigerian people, how, for instance, an order will be made for a party in the case who is a defendant to be asked to go and investigate whether the contract you are in court to enforce had commenced. My understanding of a breach of contract is that you first of all had performed your own part of obligation of the contract, you have executed the contract, bill of there's a name for it, you are certified to have done the job correctly too before you can say that you have not been paid before you can go to court. But a situation where there is no evidence of execution of a contract, you rush to court and you secure an order of court that the court will say a defendant in an action should go and investigate whether or not that contract has been performed. Does it not sound absurd? And it involves humongous amount of money in foreign currency. And then you are saying that we are fighting corruption. So, I'm not bothered about where contract documents are deposited. I'm bothered about our character as a people. I'm bothered about our love for our nation, Nigeria. How many of us really love Nigerians that we will do things in the interest of generation yet unborn? These are questions that we need to ask. This corruption is inbuilt, and I think that on the earlier we do something about the corruption in the DNA of most Nigerians, the better for us.
Okay, so the speaker suggested a review of the reward system in the country to give the civil servant a living wage. Can this be achieved without reducing the remuneration of political class?
You see, before I talk about the living wage of the civil servants, we should also ask, do we have productive civil servants who go to work, who earn the salary, even the little they are being paid? the government needs to look at, if we must fight corruption, and very seriously, apart from looking at the wages being paid to them, which is meager, which if you look at the per capita income of Nigeria, is nothing to write home about, which is meager. And everybody does whatever he or she wants to do in order to keep body and souls together. That has created a leeway for corruption. Just like we talk about the remuneration of judicial officers, for instance. A judicial officer is not being well remunerated. That's the same judicial officer that is being called upon to decide issues involving trillions of dollars, millions of dollars, millions of pound sterling, and his salary is not even up to $1,000. And then you are saying that such a judge, if not well trained in character, learning and comportment, and one who abhors corruption, certainly will give a corrupt judgment in favor of the highest bidder. And so, going back to the civil servant, I agree their remuneration should be upped. But when you up the remunerations of public officers, we should also see that you don't recruit 5 persons to do a job that 1 person can do. And then we, in another advanced country where we copy this civil service of a thing from, you don't use your hour for work for private conversation, or for truancy, or for moving from one place to the other, selling your coke, mineral, and your money to people in the offices. But in Nigeria offices today, you will see that civil servants they move from office to office, even in their offices, instead of paying detailed attention to documents and other things, in the interest of Nigerian people, they have more interest in their businesses than the work. So we must look at the remuneration, must look at the people who are recruiting into public offices, because in those days, civil servants were not politicians. They were political. But we now began to talk about so many things in Nigeria called freedom. We then have authorities that even as a civil servant, you can belong to a political party. And so the neutrality expected of a civil servant is going down in geometrical proportion, because civil servants now switch allegiance to political parties that comes to power, even when that political party and politicians are doing wrong things. In other crime, where we have institution, I always give this example of Donald Trump. If America did not have a strong democratic institution, strong military institution, strong electoral body, Donald Trump would have still remained a president of America. Will the situation in United States of America ever happen in Nigeria, where the Independent Electoral Commission will look at the face of the governor, will look at the face of the ministers, look at the face of Mr. President, and say this election is not free and fair? I had always advocated that INEC that is to be assisted, that are being assisted in most litigations in court by losers of election, always team up with those who fraudulently impose themselves on power to defend the fraudulent activities of those politicians. So I have always not regarded INEC as independent. It's independent in name, but when it comes to action, INEC, particularly in litigation, and when you issue a press statement that the election in that area is not free and fair, why then some are sorting overnight to defend that election? Particularly in a democracy where you see people carrying helicopter and gun, parading in the air, scaring people, dead body littering all over the world, all over the places, and you are saying that is democracy, because that election cannot be said to be free, fair, and credible. You have intimidated people, and it includes undue influence to force yourself on the Nigerian people. So for me, coming back to your civil service, coming back to every of these things you are talking about, it again boils down to our personal character and attitude. How many of us are really ready to defend our principle in the face of money mouth-watering, daggling money. Even as a civil servant, they ask you to sign the documents. You are signing because you have been promised 10%. These are things we need to do, need to look at.
Okay, so now, if we are talking about the personal character of our civil servants, and of course, looking at what they do before we can talk about upping their remuneration and all the rest of them, how else do you suggest the civil servant can be handled to stop supporting the politicians from stealing from public resources? Let me give you an instance. The mismanagement of security funds at all levels of government. How do you think the politicians and the civil servants can be handled to stop supporting the politicians?
The civil servants we have did not give birth to themselves from the blue. They are products of either children of political class or children of well-to-do. Today, you know that in Nigeria, employment is not given to you on the basis of what you know or on the basis of what you can contribute, but on the basis of who you know and your connections. And you are aware, and I have written, and I keep saying it, that graduates in Nigerians are not getting employment on platter of gold. Some people within the system are selling employment to Nigerians. And I have asked in my write-up, is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria not aware? Is the Chairman of Civil Service Commission not aware? There are employment racketeering everywhere, where undergraduates pay their ways to get employed. Now, when you get to the seat of power by corrupt means, how do you then sit in that seat of power to talk about purity of that institutions? You will also continue to corrupt your ways. That's why when you see these politicians talking about having structures here and there, and then delegates are being bought, well, how do you expect that political leader or the man who wants to be your leader to rule you well without first recouping investments? So when we are talking about this, how do you eradicate all of this from our system? Nigerians, first of all, need to agree that corruption is bad. And we all agree that corruption is bad. Two, we must agree that how corruption is to be fought without the shenanigan of this kind of arid and anachronistic legal jargon that stop the fighting of corruption. If you ask me, I will advocate an amendment of our law to engage in the fight of corruption, to use inquisitorial system rather than acquisitorial system. And I will explain what I mean. In the inquisitorial system of administration of justice, you are the one to prove your innocence, not for the state to prove your guilt beyond reasonable doubt. In acquisitorial system that we have now, under our constitution, if you are accused of stealing humongous amount of money, the constitution is saying you should keep quiet. And mark you, the level of criminal justification inherent in the brains of most Nigerians now are far more than the level of justification of equipment of the state to investigate. And so, if suddenly you are owning an estate, suddenly you become managing director and chief executive of numerosities of planes, airlines, then you are not known to be a man or a woman that have legitimate income. Then you should be called upon, pursuant to Section 7 of the EFCC Act, to explain your source of wealth. Are we prepared that when Marvelous, for instance, is being invited by EFCC to come and explain how he got money for his glasses and his cap, and Nigerians prepare to bring and leave primordial selfish interest to say that what about Mr. Kutepa that had stolen? Why are they not arresting him? See, until we drop the blame game that the arrest is political, but we are not looking at the merit of the arrest, but we are looking at the political nature of it. We have caught a thief. You say because that thief is in part A and part A is not in power, that is why that is done. But again, you may not blame Nigeria who say so, because there are also very many thieves in part B who is in power and they are not being investigated. So number 3, the government must be very sincere and employ the Lee Kuan Yew panacea to fighting of corruption. We must start from the top. Make examples of the bigger thieves who are all over in all the in the various political parties, whether in private or in government. There are people who are pseudo government. They are not they are not the physical leader, but they are the remote control that open the television of corruption for others to view and see and arrange themselves. So we must, until we do away with this concept of sacred cows, they touch not. There are Nigerians that have held the Nigerians to their jugular in terms of this corruption. They are the touch not Nigerians. Government must be prepared to deal with the touch not, because after all, in the theory of government, we agreed to surrender everything to government, for government to protect us, for government to do what it needs to do, so that you and I can go to our respective rooms and sleep with 2 eyes closed. But today, there are people who are more powerful than government in Nigeria. Not too long ago, some persons described by people in government to be ragtag almost had overwhelmed the Nigerian Correctional Center. What is government doing about it? What is the role of our intelligence gathering? Our intelligence are gathered and given. What is the role of those who are supposed to implement those intelligence gathering? Civil servants or public officers that are corrupt. The government has this apparatus, the system to know it. Are they prepared to step on the toes of those people? Because they are not ready because of political advantage. And let me conclude on this note by saying that the most lucrative jobs in Nigeria today is politics. And nobody cares how you get there. And the moment you get there, you become a demigod. People worship you. You are worshipped as if your own blood is far better than the blood of other Nigerians that are sleeping under the bridge.
Okay, so finally, this very last question in the next 2 minutes. From what you've analyzed so far, let's look at categorically the judiciary. Of course, the anti-graft agencies, some of them have said that yes, they've gotten some evidences, and then there are court litigations against those that they might have caught, in concert with corruption and all the rest of them. But because of the delay in justice administration, there are a lot of judgments that have yet to be given. So what do you think? And of course, we have laws against corruption in Nigeria, and you've always advocated that there is no issue with our law. It's just the will, the will to carry out those laws and implement them to its fullest. So what do you think the judiciary ought to do so that most of these judgments are given? And of course, people
see. Let's not use judiciary as scapegoat. We operate a system that is acquisitorial. The state must first of all invest heavily in scientific investigation. When you have watertight evidence, and you must have watertight evidence before you can arraign a person in court. 2, we must reduce the number of counts we will have. Sometimes you go to court, you see that the reading of the counts may take 2 days. We must reduce it. 3, before you can blame the judiciary must also be well founded. Number 4, we must also look at the character of both the prosecuting agency and the defending agencies. I mean the legal practitioners involved. In Nigeria, there are no boundaries for lawyer. Everyone travel to every boundaries he or she likes, because even though there are boundaries in law of what you are not supposed to do as a lawyer, there are no immediate consequences. So much so that those who are not reasonably fit to be a member of the noble profession will in some cases even lead the profession in the most embarrassing manner. And so, because there are no consequences in Nigeria, and we are used to abnormalities as normal, then nothing seems to work well. Otherwise, in a well-defined society, there are certain applications that lawyers cannot make. Once you make such application that is aimed at delaying the case or frustrating the trial, you are shown the way out by the withdrawal of your license. But how many lawyers have had their license withdrawn on the basis of the frivolities of applications they filed to stop proceedings until the Administration of Criminal Justice Act came and limiting the number of adjournment? Even that is being obeyed in breach in the name of right to fair hearing. I believe that right to fair hearing is good, but if we live in utopian concept of right to fair hearing, the sanctity and the integrity and the economic development of Nigeria will be the one to suffer shipwreck. Therefore, there must be a boundary for the prosecuting agency, for the defending attorney, and for the investigating agency, and for the presiding judges that handle corruption cases. Once we have that boundaries, and we now know that the boundary are being crossed and there are consequences, we sit up. That is why, again, I prescribe the panacea of Lee Kuan Yew. Let there be no sacred cows. Indeed, in one of the books that I read of Lee Kuan Yew, he said we did not compromise. Even those who were close to him were dealt with. But in Nigeria, your closeness to power that be is a license for more atrocities to be committed. And that's why we are where we are.
Well, that's it on our package on the conversation. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. And now for our thank you for this Sunday. Oluwatobiloba Daniel Anidwe, better known by his stage name Kiss Daniel, a product of the Federal University of Agriculture at Abeokuta, caused a dance hall stir in 2013 when he swept aside existing dance hall monsters. The single Woju, which threw Daniel up, remains favorite on radio stations and most dance hall swingers. For making so many of his generation happy, we say thank you to Kiss Daniel this Sunday.
No be you a carry go, but you a go carry go. Sisi a carry go, yeah, yo. No be you a the check on no, but you a wanna no. Sisi Ferrari yeah, yo. Baby sweet, yeah. Baby nice, yeah. Baby do all the quarter. Show me more taxi. Robo ya roni, oti makode wapa, o afe makuka semi. What you baby koya what you koya what you baby koya what you Papa for you, come my love for you. 'Cause the more you look, I'm the less you can see my love.
And that's our program for this Sunday. We hope your regular anchor, Chief Nwabueze Njoko, returns to good health and keeps a date with you next week. I am Marvelous Obomano. Good afternoon.